These files were never meant to be public, but someone reopened them. This is the Dark Bureau. Money moves silently across borders, in sums vast enough to shape news cycles yet invisible to most. It flows, not merely as charity, but as part of intricate systems where fundraising is the institution's core engine, legal, yet fundamentally beyond true accountability. This is not casual benevolence. Here, money's movement is strategic, engineered to convert influence into quiet power, shaping decisions at the highest levels under the guise of philanthropy. Behind mirrored glass towers and in the stacks of dull office paperwork, organisations operate whose names rarely reach public discourse. Most non-profits pursue good works openly. But within certain networks, relentless fundraising fuels operations that sway policy and diplomacy itself. The legal act of donation, multiplied by technical manoeuvres through layered entities, becomes a campaign to shape the sovereignty of entire states, not just faith communities. No structure better embodies this machinery than the Unification Church, now formally styled as the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification. Founded amid post-war Korean divisions, it soon transcended its origins, presenting as a peace movement while quietly assembling a sophisticated apparatus for global influence. Its public face is all mass weddings, peace events, and civic pledges. Beneath that surface operates a tangle of shell firms, disguised lobbying arms, and fundraising fronts, built to slip through legal regimes and adapt when challenged. While church gatherings teach unity and spiritual discipline, parallel teams cultivate political contacts and forge relationships with business operatives. Festivals and outreach serve dual purposes. They recruit and legitimise while also fueling transnational donation pipelines and leveraging public trust for private financial gain. The real question becomes, who controls the outcomes shaped by these undercurrents, and what becomes of state sovereignty under such persistent influence? For years, investigators, journalists, and defectors traced the church alongside better-known new religious movements. But the scope of its operation was repeatedly underestimated. The church, spreading quickly from Korea into Japan, America, and beyond, blended faith with commerce, volunteerism with sales, and non-profit with for-profit activity. Its outward works deflected scrutiny, masking the migration of vast resources through a labyrinth designed to withstand legal pressure. The result? A durable, networked force coupled to power beyond market, law, or democracy. The history starts with Reverend Sun Myung Moon and a 1954 founding in a divided Korea. Within 2 decades, choreographed spectacles, mass marriages, media blitzes, and relentless recruitment cast it as both religious movement and social phenomenon. But real expansion came through less visible means, layering outreach with profit-driven subsidiaries, tithes with commercial investments, and dazzling public events with back-end machinery for cross-border finance and political entanglement. Countries such as Japan became flagship bases. Here, journalists and authorities uncovered organised campaigns pressuring congregants for large, repeated donations, often tied to spiritual guilt or appeals to family destiny. The term spiritual sales emerged, describing the transactional conversion of faith into required payment through goods or blessings. The concept spread. Similar schemes surfaced elsewhere, each tweaked to local expectations, with volunteers recast as sales agents and donation drives woven into daily operations. The 1970s and 1980s saw the church direct focus toward the US, constructing alliances with anti-communist blocs and launching wide-ranging media ventures. Behind these, money flowed from Japanese and Korean branches via a shifting web of shell companies, usually managed by long-standing insiders. By the 1980s, Japan's operation was an industry unto itself, generating billions, mostly off radar to tax authorities and scrutiny. Much of this capital discreetly entered Western non-profit and advocacy circuits, using ambiguous entities that technically avoided direct association, but were never far from church control. In Korea, the strategy expanded. Moon's conglomerates, spanning real estate, manufacturing and food service, generated income and shielded leaders from regulatory risk. Domestic fundraising both supported headquarters in Seoul and diversified risk across sectors. This model was exported in the US, Europe and later Africa. Parallel methods appeared, each tailored for local law. Each regulatory probe or media expose, rather than ending the operation, triggered adaptation. Old non-profits were dissolved or renamed. New fronts emerged with retooled language and leadership. Funds, offices, even digital infrastructure moved in anticipation of enforcement. Systemic resilience, not conspiracy, but deliberate, creative adaptation, kept the goals intact, while institutional memory and control quietly persisted. Audit trails, directorship lists, paper addresses, all fragmented to resist pattern recognition, except by the most determined analysts. With mounting pressure in the late 1990s, especially in Japan and Korea, investigative efforts intensified. Outcry over fundraising tactics and evidence of covert payments to political elites forced legislative hearings and intelligence reviews. Secret flows to politicians were now documented. Far from exposing an isolated case, these reports hinted at an extensive system enmeshed with institutional actors, one designed to continually mutate and evade. Still, each wave of scandal resulted only in greater sophistication. New fronts replaced the old. Documented abuses triggered further compartmentalization, with leadership, directors, and assets shifting in choreography that outpaced bureaucratic response. Archived data, court documents, and financial transfers, viewed singly, appeared disconnected. Only through network analysis did recurring names, addresses, and flows reveal integrated control, repeating itself as soon as old entities closed. The 2022 assassination of Shinzo Abe in Japan sharpened public focus. The perpetrator's justification, his family's financial ruin at the hands of church-linked donations, brought international attention. Governments responded with sweeping reviews of non-profit legality and cross-border money trails, but the system responded in kind, shuffling legal identities, relocating assets, and swiftly spawning new vehicles under new banners, but the same command. In-depth investigations emerged. Japanese and South Korean authorities mapped not just illegal acts, but patterns, identifying recurring directors, transactional chains, and affiliated businesses. Network analytics borrowed from financial crime and counter-terrorism at last began to code the scope. Cultural and academic organs, multinational consortiums, even diplomatic forums. Many mere shells for the same small group of operators. US and European probes traced cleaned donations into election campaigns and events, uncovering how deliberate complexity was used to bleed influence through ostensibly legitimate means. The true achievement of the Church was not just mobilizing followers, but institutionalizing private power, quietly embedding it so fully that state and commercial boundaries blurred. Regulators began reacting. Japan imposed transparency laws, penalized predatory fundraising, and forcibly dissolved several church-linked business fronts. Korea undertook periodic reviews of holding companies, and intelligence services expanded monitoring, aware that each forced shutdown was only partial. Globally, anti-money laundering agencies updated protocols to flag charitable cultural outfits for possible influence operations. But enforcement lagged. Legal harmonization across borders was slow. Each time a tactic was blocked, new structures emerged, defaulting back to the underlying design. The network persisted, shedding only what was exposed and often resurfacing virtually the same. At the individual level, the consequences hit hardest. families lost savings, lives divided by obligations to give or sell. Financial ruin was not rare. Social isolation and legal threats faced whistleblowers and defectors. Law enforcement, confined by fragmented laws and slow-moving investigations, repeatedly underestimated the scope. Estimates of money raised and influence wielded are inevitably conservative, the system designed to elude a complete tally. On a global scale, the effect is more subtle yet profound. The shadow of private influence lingers in diplomatic negotiations, legislative decisions, and transnational deals, with church-affiliated mediators acting in roles never officially acknowledged. Politicians privately express concern at the normalisation of such power, wary of diplomatic events and charity summits, where true interests are obscured. Soft power, weaponised for institutional agendas, threatens the foundation of open governance. Even now, the system survives exposure. Its core strengths, compartmentalisation, adaptability to legal change, and the ceaseless multiplication of fundraising conduits, are now studied by operatives everywhere. Networks worldwide have taken up the same methods, hiding influence in the folds of charity and commerce. The Unification Church's enduring legacy is not just what it built, but the model it established. To navigate these realities is to confront private machines capable of sidestepping democracy itself. Grappling with these hidden architectures of power is a crucial challenge of the age, one that demands both vigilance and systemic reform.